everyone, it's Dave. Welcome back to another edition of Space Stock Updates. There's a lot that's been going on in the space industry for the past couple weeks, so let's get to it. Alright, so our first story of the day is the shakeup at Blue Origin. Now, obviously, Blue Origin, not a publicly traded company, but they do have a big impact on a lot of the other companies we know and love, so I do like to cover them for that reason. And what's happened here today is that Jeff Bezos is going to be replacing Blue Origin's CEO, Bob Smith, with a former Amazon executive, Dave Limp. And now, the reason I found this so interesting is because just a little while ago, Jeff and the leadership at Amazon were being sued, saying that they're basically giving preferential treatment to his other company, Blue Origin, instead of doing right by the shareholders at Amazon and getting Amazon shareholders the best deal they can. So you would think after getting sued for something like that, the response would be to try and at least maintain the appearance of being completely separate from each other, separate companies, separate management, in those ties, not having an impact on Amazon shareholders. Jeff decides, forget it. You know what? I'm hiring Project Kuiper executive from Amazon, poaching him over to Blue Origin. And I think this just goes to show the ties between the two companies are so tight. I do think there's probably some merit to this lawsuit. And really, Amazon is giving Jeff's other company preferential treatment instead of trying to get the best deals for launches and all the rest for Amazon shareholders, regardless of whether it benefits Jeff's other companies. So I just thought this was extremely bold of him and might be giving some of his lawyers fits. But not something I would do. I had to have a little bit of a chuckle at this. I'm sure Limp is a good executive, but I just don't like how the appearance looks. Even if everything's above board and there's nothing going on, you do want to maintain appearances at least of, everything being fair. And I think at least in terms of appearances, this does not look very good for Amazon shareholders. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any impact on that lawsuit, and just the timing of this I found quite interesting. But I think, Jeff really wants progress to speed up at Blue Origin, and who can blame him on that front? Let me know down below in the comments if you think there's anything wrong with this move or it's all fine, and it's obviously someone Jeff Bezos is comfortable with, having worked with on the Amazon side of things. Continuing on with the Amazon Kuiper constellation, they are getting ready to launch the first 2 test satellites finally after so many delays. They're launching on an Atlas V rocket from ULA. That launch date is set to take place on October 6, 2023, opening at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So I will be excited to see what these satellites can do, finally get them up in the air. Hopefully this can be a step forward for Amazon's Kuiper program, which should add a lot more business to the rest of the entire industry, a lot of trickle-down effects, different parts, different components, and all the rest, as well as moving closer to those launch deals for the whole constellation. Also with Blue, the FAA did finally close the investigation on New Shepard. This vehicle has been out of service for a year now, and a lot of people have been wondering when they're finally going to return to flight. A lot of people did think that at least in terms of design, it looked safer than Virgin Galactic's vehicle. So a big shock to see Virgin Galactic operating so regularly and Blue Origin not. This is finally going to be rectified, though. The final report cites that the proximate cause of the mishap as a structural failure of an engine nozzle caused by higher than expected engine operating temperatures. The FAA required Blue Origin to implement 21 corrective actions to prevent the mishap from reoccurring, including redesign of engine and nozzle components to improve structural performance during operation, as well as organizational changes. So I found the organizational changes personally quite odd, not just, dealing with the structure of the nozzle, but, making changes to the actual structure of the organization as well. Seems to have been a fairly major job to get this back up and running, and I really do think it's more of a sideshow for Blue than anything at this point. It's all about New Glenn, it's all about their lander and some of their other ventures, but hopefully they can get flying again soon. And yeah, a lot of news about Blue lately, and also Sierra Space impacted on this one. The Orbital Reef Space Station, something that has been talked about a lot over the past couple years, could be one of the potential first commercial space stations operating in orbit, allowing people to come and stay as tourists, in jeopardy of being canceled completely. So Sierra Space and Blue Origin are navigating a potential end to the space station partnership, according to 3 people who spoke anonymously. Obviously, we don't know their names, and these matters are ongoing. They do say that development of other projects with more significant current contracts, such as Blue Moon for Blue Origin, their lander, and Sierra Space working on their Dream Chaser vehicle, have taken higher priority for both these companies, so both of them not focusing so much on this Orbital Reef Space Station. Although we have seen Sierra Space do some work in testing on potential inflatable modules that looked pretty cool, to be honest with you. Shortly after unveiling this project, Blue Origin won a $130 million contract from NASA for design work on the private station. Might wonder what's going to happen with that if they do cancel it. Well, they did meet certain milestones already that justified the payout of $24 million. The rest, obviously, they would not receive if the station was to be canceled. So, sad news. I really do hope to see this orbital space station launched one day. I do hope we get some, commercial space stations going, because we all know that the ISS cannot and will not last forever. Continuing on with Sierra Space, some interesting news from them. Again, not a publicly traded company, but they did raise $300 million from a Japanese consortium at a valuation of over $5 billion. And the reason I think this is interesting for public space investors is because this round valued the space company at $5.3 billion, whereas 2 years ago, they raised $1.4 billion at a valuation of $4.5 billion. So the value of Sierra Space on the private markets, even though they've clearly been burning a lot of this money and, they're still working on their space station, or they're still working on their Dream Chaser and all the rest, has grown, whereas a lot of these public post-SPAC companies have plunged. So I think it's pretty clear that the private markets are being kinder to these growing space ventures than the public markets at this point. So Sierra probably making a good decision to stay private, and a lot of these other companies that came public pre, significant revenues or profitability are really paying the price and having a hard time raising additional funds, something that I think future companies can learn from. It's also interesting if we can get a deeper look at Sierra Space's revenues and stuff like that. Perhaps we could use this valuation to compare to other companies out there, such as like a Rocket Lab, for instance. And talking about Rocket Lab, they did post a tweet, or I guess a post now, you don't call it a tweet apparently, saying that they are honing in on the issue experienced on their 41st launch. Look forward to sharing an update soon. And then they showed a picture of their factory full of rockets, saying that they're poised to resume launches and deliver on a busy manifest as soon as corrective measures are in place. So hopefully that sounds like a positive update from Rocket Lab. Obviously no details there. Maybe they're just trying to, reassure people. But they do sound, at least in the tweet, to be pretty confident about the issue. And also talking about their Mars mission, this is one I was pretty excited about for NASA, building out 2 satellites to go to Mars based on their Photon program, and they are developing those right now in their Long Beach facility. Qualification campaign is going to be underway soon for that launch next year. Rocket Lab also did provide revised guidance for Q3 after that failed launch. It's not too unexpected, really. Basically, subtract out some revenue from a launch. So prior guidance was 73 to 77. Now it's 66 to 68. Prior, 30 million in space systems versus 22. So the nice thing to see here is at least space systems revenue has a big jump in their guidance, meaning things are going well on the space system side of the business. Obviously, this launch is going to hit the launch side of the business exclusively. So, it seems like it could be worse if that Space Systems came in below guidance or even in line with that 22 million. These numbers would look even worse. Also with Rocket Lab, ARC has been buying the dip lately. Several buys on their ARC X fund we've been seeing. Smaller amounts, but still significant for the company. I take that as a good sign or a bad sign. They have their fans and detractors out there. I'll let you make the call on that. But I think, anyone buying the stock as opposed to selling it can only help the share price in the long run, whether you agree with some of Cathie Wood's other picks or not. And Firefly was finally successful in launching their Alpha rocket into orbit for the United States government. Their Victus Nox mission was a tactical responsive space mission, meaning they had just 24 hours after a notification to get the launch off, which they succeeded in, the previous record being 21 days for one of these tactical responsive space launches. So congratulations to Firefly. This is their first fully successful mission for their Alpha vehicle. It is disappointing that we didn't get any film or video of the launch. Obviously, when it comes to these national security type missions, there's a lot of security around those sorts of things, but it would have been very nice to be able to watch their first ever completely successful launch. Interesting comments by Firefly, who is working on a larger launch vehicle with Northrop Grumman called the Medium Launch Vehicle. Apparently, the NSSL's Phase 3, which we know Neutron will be going for that Lane 1 in that Phase 3, a massive contract for these defense launches. Firefly wants in on it, so he's saying that their medium launch vehicle is designed for this Lane 1, which Rocket Lab will also be shooting for with Neutron. So the competition will be heating up in that Lane 1 in the next couple years to try and secure those launches, very lucrative launches for these companies. So back on the 18th, Terran Orbital did announce a cash raise of $32.5 million. This is money they desperately need to keep running. Obviously, when the share price is below $2, you know something's got to be going wrong, because if you drop below that $1 point, then you're getting delisted. So rough position for Terran Orbital to be in. I know they do have some fans out there, and hopefully this cash will allow them to continue operations and push towards profitability. Some interesting updates on the Vega C rocket out of Europe. According to a source on this Twitter post, there was also a nozzle as the cause of the failure, and that nozzle will need to be redesigned before the stage can re-enter operational flight. If this is the case, a late 2024 return to flight is probably the best case scenario. So that's a huge blow for Vega C, but as he says, it may very well be an opportunity for some European launch startups to swoop in and fill the vacancy. We've had a lot of American and I guess New Zealand launch startups have, a lot of spotlights put on them. Europe launch startups are trailing a little bit behind, although we have gotten some news out of the likes of RFA and some other ones. So definitely a rough place for European launch right now, especially with that Ariane 6 rocket delayed. And who knows when that's finally going to launch. So definitely, a rough place for European launch. Hopefully some of these commercial startups can come in and fill that void. Breaking news here from Planet Labs. They did have an agreement with NASA extended. NASA has extended its blanket purchase agreement with Planet under the commercial smallsat data acquisition program, with multiple orders totaling $18.5 million in funding through 2024. So yes, some good news for Planet Labs. However, this is just an extension. It's not like new business for them. So definitely good news, perhaps not as exciting as a brand new deal bringing in new funding. And I do have to say, Planet stock right now does desperately need some good news after the pummeling it's taken over the last couple months. Vodafone and AST Spacemobile also announced that they completed the world's first 5G space-based call using a conventional smartphone. Previously, we had heard that they completed a 4G call. This one, obviously 5G, so having those additional capabilities. In a separate test, AST Spacemobile, supported by Vodafone, broke their previous record for 14 megabits per second, a faster download speed, pretty solid when you're talking about going direct to a phone and not a dish like a Starlink or Kuiper type situation. Today's advancement is part of AST Spacemobile's path toward its goal of launching 5 commercial Bluebird satellites in the first quarter of 2024. That date is coming up very soon, and I know there's a lot of AST fans out there really looking forward to that. So hopefully the technology seems like it's mostly proven at this point, but there is a matter of funding. And then the big Eutelsat and OneWeb combination has finally been completed. OneWeb will be a subsidiary operating commercially as Eutelsat OneWeb, with its center of operations remaining in London. So this is a massive merger of 2 very large satellite companies. OneWeb obviously more well known for us on the other side of the pond, but Eutelsat, a very big European company as well. They did say that their powerful GEO fleet will combine network density and high throughput with low latency and ubiquity of OneWeb's LEO constellation to offer customers global, fully integrated connectivity services. So a big day for Eutelsat and OneWeb. It's been a very long road for OneWeb, very long and winding, but here they are now, hopefully finding a permanent home with Eutelsat. The combined entity is expected to grow at a double-digit compound annual growth rate over the medium to long term, reaching $2 billion in annual revenues in 2027. So we will keep an eye on that one going forward. And then the troubled space company Momentous Space had some interesting propulsion technology using water. Seems like it's in a lot of trouble lately. They did just have a big shareholder sell all their shares. The shareholder, I believe, owned about 10% of the company, Prime Movers Lab Fund. A big sale, and I continue to worry a lot about the future of Momentous Space. Finally, to wrap up, I think we all know at this point that Viasat has had a ton of bad news over the last year or so, with several high-profile satellite failures really hurting the company, and those investments obviously costing a lot of money. So it does make a lot of sense that they would raise additional capital, announcing the pricing of a $733 million senior notes. The closing sale of the notes, subject to customary conditions, expected to occur yesterday, so that should have already closed, and I'm sure they will try to use that money to replace some of those satellites that did fail unexpectedly. Been a rough year for the company. Hopefully they can put it behind them and move past it. That's all the news I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought about any of these pieces of news in the comments below. I'll be sure to check it out. If you haven't already, I hope you'll consider subscribing. I come back with more videos very regularly, and every subscriber is hugely appreciated. Thank you guys so much if you are already subscribed. I hope you have a great day, a great rest of the week, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.